most people, every conversation I have about this, they overestimate the amount of calories that they're burning off, and they underestimate the amount of calories they're consuming.
Right.
So if I were to ask you, do you have any idea how many calories you burn running a 5K? Do you have any idea?
Whenever I do a mile and a half, I want to say I'm probably burning 300 or 400 calories. And that's walking.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to run a 5K with the present condition I'm in.
Right.
But if I walked a 5K, 3.3 miles.
Yep.
Yeah. So I'd imagine probably about 600-700 calories.
Okay. And Krispy Kreme donut.
It's probably 900 calories.
Okay. So both of those, I didn't expect you to get right?
From the business capital of the world, the Big Apple, New York's Middle Tennessee, it says here. Sounds riveting. This is the Mostly Middle Tennessee Business Podcast, a podcast about Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals. Mostly.
That's right. There's a reason why it's a mostly podcast, because in the past couple of episodes, we've had people from California. If you've caught the Huey Lewis and the News Tribute Band podcast, Tony Langdon was he lives here now, but both the brothers were from California. Roger, the singer, is still in San Diego, so that's where the mostly comes from. Occasionally, we just kind of get people that are generally from the area most of the time. How's that for being specific or vague? Big shout out to my pal who did the voiceover for the intro of this podcast, Matt Wilson. You can check out his podcast, the Mostly Marketing Podcast. And no, he didn't rip that off from me. I ripped the Mostly off from him. I'm totally transparent and willing to admit it. It's just kind of a cool name. And he gives me crap about it all the time, but that's okay. This is a podcast for Middle Tennessee business owners and professionals and entrepreneurs, mostly in their challenges, their stories, things that they've overcome. They are meandering conversations. We do go off on tangents, and they're all real, natural conversations. That's what I love about it. And there's a lot of people here to talk to, because Middle Tennessee's become a haven for the entrepreneurial spirit of America. It is a video and audio podcast. Check us out at MMTBP.com. If you would, our big, hairy, audacious goal for 2024 is 10,000 average downloads per episode over an annualized period. So if you can help us out, share the podcast, rate, review it. And if you want to be a guest or know somebody who needs to be a guest, send them to the website. There's a link there where they can sign up and apply to be on the show. I am your host, Jim McCarthy, with JimMcCarthyVoiceovers.com, and it's your show.co, where we make podcasts just like this one. So if you're thinking about changing up your intro, or maybe you need someone to take a listen to one of your podcast episodes, hit us up. Or if you need a podcast like this, we can do it. And I've talked all the way to the end of the music. How about that?
Nice.
So today, coming all the way from Spring Hill, correct?
Yes, sir.
I'm just meeting you for the first time today. You are a buddy of my business partner, Mr. John Warner. He's been on a couple of episodes as well.
John.
Recently.
He's awesome.
He's a great guy. Those of you listening, what you're going to get out of today's episode is a lot of fitness information. Guys like me who are pushing 50, who, you're kind of trying to figure out how to navigate the health and fitness of what we do, especially at this age, because as we all know, as we get older, it gets tougher and tougher to stay in shape for most people, especially me. It mostly happened for me on a CPAP. I went on a CPAP and all of a sudden I gained like 15 pounds, which apparently wasn't supposed to happen. But hey, I was the exception to the rule. Yay, me. So please welcome Danny Zacharias, sir. Thanks for coming out here.
Thanks for having me.
And you are all things. You do health and wellness and fitness programs for people that are our age. You're also a firearms instructor, and you're a lighting guy.
I am.
Is that how everything began?
Kind of. So I have spent 28 years now, I guess, touring around the country doing lighting and production design for concerts, conferences, that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that's been my main career, main business stuff.
How'd you get into that?
I went to a year-long internship program with the ministry called Teen Mania and Acquire the Fire. They did big youth conferences back in the day, and thought I was going to a year-long internship program, and turned into a
28-year
career.
That's a long internship.
Doing something most people don't realize can be a career. So.
It's kind of like getting in the radio. At the beginning, it was a lot of jobs required experience, but didn't want to hire first timers.
Right.
It was like, okay, well, how do I overcome this?
That's funny. Yeah.
You just got to find your way in.
No, absolutely. I tell people all the time who are getting started in the industry, because they're like, it's all about who you know. And I'm like, no, it's about who knows you and what you're capable of and what kind of a person you are. And then they trust you, and then they give you more opportunities.
Excuse me. And that's pretty much how it happened for you?
I believe so, yeah. And I went to that internship. I stuck around. They started buying more and more equipment and doing bigger shows into arenas and that kind of stuff. And I was just there and learned from a lot of really amazing people, kind of did some apprenticeship type things with some designers, and just never left. And
what was intriguing about it for you?
When I was at that stage of my life, being a part of something that had an impact like that kind of a ministry impact on people. And they were big on doing missions around the world. And they take thousands of teenagers every year on mission trips around the world. And the conferences we did kind of fed all of that. And so being a part of changing lives and doing that kind of stuff. But then I got to do more of the music side of it. And just I found that I was pretty good at all of that. I was also a bass player. Every good lighting guy that I know was either a drummer, a bass player, or they started when they were 15 and they're just a tech nerd.
The drumming thing makes sense because drummers like me.
Yep.
It's like we're octopi. We can do a lot of different things, and every drummer, I met one today, another guy who's a voiceover guy. He's an actor. And I think he does video and audio production. I said, by the way, are you a drummer? He goes, I am. How'd you know? I said, just a wild hunch, man. I said, we just tend to get into a lot of things.
Yep. For the lighting side of things, it's the rhythm side of stuff. A lot of it translates really well into the music. And so if you're doing, and I've done stuff for I toured with Scotty McCreery after he won American Idol. I spent 5 years with him. I toured with a lot of people for a lot of years. And, but it's always like being another member of the band if you're doing it right. The thing I'm doing visually needs to connect with what they're doing musically and pull the whole room into it.
Did you have kind of a license and carte blanche to design the shows around the music?
At a certain point in my career, yeah. Right. And so that's kind of, I like that part. It's the creative outlet for me. I love doing that stuff.
In your opinion, in the lighting business, and especially with tours over the years, what was what was your favorite band to get inspiration from for their lighting?
I liked touring with different people for different reasons. I'm
just talking about from just gosh, why can't I think of words? A viewer perspective.
A lot of the really cool lighting design stuff all started with Genesis back in the day. And so they actually helped, the people that were doing the lighting there kind of created that whole moving light industry side of stuff, experimenting and putting motors on lights that just normal park hands, but now they could turn and they could tilt, and it kind of grew out of there. So there's a lot of stuff from that era of lighting design that it's just really, really beautiful to look at and just to see how that design came together. And then the shows evolved to being able to be completely controlled by computers and videos tied into it now. And
grandma boards.
Oh, yeah. I toured. That's
Grand MA or
Grand MA, yep.
It's we got familiar with those with another company. The touring that I always paid attention to back in the day that I came up with, Pink Floyd and Rush were always the icons for a good light show, right?
The one that I'm always amused by is Fish had a light solo as part of their show. You have a drum solo, drum solo, guitar, light solo. That always made me laugh. That was good.
We had a laser light show that came through Danbury, Connecticut, and they synced everything up to Led Zeppelin music.
Nice.
And you just sat in the auditorium watching the light show, listening to music.
Right.
It was a pretty cool experience.
That's fun.
So getting into the other things that you do, you've been doing the lighting thing for 28 years.
Yeah, something like that, 27, 28.
And now you're at it I just want to try other things. I mean, it's still kind of a mainstay of what you do.
Yep.
But you've also gotten into firearms training at some point, correct?
Yep.
How'd that happen?
Well, basically, I used to... my wife and I, I've been married for 24 years this year. We got married in 2000. Best decision ever. I know exactly how long we've been married, depending on what month it is. It's awesome.
It really does make a difference. I was married in 01.
Right.
And I have to think about that.
Right.
You know?
Well, even just I say that and then I stumbled over it, which is pretty funny. But we both, when we turned 30, we didn't have kids yet. And we were like, there's stuff we've been putting off for years. Yeah. And so I took up Aikido. It's a Japanese martial art.
Yeah.
I trained in like 10 hours a week for many, many years. And she picked up pottery, which ironically share a lot of principles, but I won't get into that.
Does she teach it?
No, she just did it for a while and she actually hasn't done it in years. But it was something she wanted to get into. And so I trained with those guys, and some of them were some of the SWAT trainers around here and that stuff. And after a number of years of that, they were like, you're in pretty good shape if someone's 8 to 10 feet away from you, but what if they're 20 feet away with a gun? What are you going to do? And I was like, oh crap, I got to learn something new. And
have you ever seen Remo Williams?
I have, actually.
Hey, Middle Tennessee electricians, handy women and men, and just those of you needing better commercial LED lighting solutions. Yeah, I know, there's so many of you. I have to tell you, there's another option than just the big orange and blue box stores now. Try j2lighting.com. At j2lighting.com, we have the latest technology in all types of commercial LED lighting, from UFO high base, drawers, area lights, and shoeboxes, right on down to a slimline wall pack that doesn't look like a fist coming off the wall like most other wall packs do. You get what I'm saying, right? Many of our fixtures are wattage and color temperature selectable, which means you have more control over the brightness and appearance in your dark spaces. Check us out at j2lighting.com for a great local source for your commercial LED lighting ideas, even full color light show dreams. Yeah, totally. That's the letter J and number 2 lighting.com. j2lighting.com. That would be my response.
That's funny.
I'm going to do what that guy did. Dodge the bullets.
That was a movie I watched with my dad as a kid. It's really fun.
It was a great movie.
It was.
It was supposed to be the beginning of a bunch of movies, but it never got off the ground.
Never materialized. I was always bummed by that.
I know.
I think it even says like the adventure begins or the story begins or something, right? In the title. And then
that's where it ended.
It ended. Yeah. That's funny. And so,
Fred Ward.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So those guys got me interested in starting in firearms. And because of the high level of conferences that I used to do, we worked with some really high-end security companies because we're really big. You got 50,000 people sometimes at these events.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of money, a lot of keynote speakers, all that stuff having to be handled. And so those guys were really top-notch. And they're like, if you ever want to learn how to shoot, go to this school. And so I went and trained at this school in Nevada for years. I'd fly out there for 4 to 8 days at a time and just do firearms training. So I ended up
out in the desert?
Out in the desert.
Nice.
Nevada. And so I would spend, that was all very structured training. And I love training. I don't like to just go to the range and shoot. I want to actually learn stuff or put things to the test that I know and all of that.
Practical application.
And get really good at it. And so I got really good, did really advanced firearms training with that kind of stuff. And anyway, I've just always kind of kept that up.
Interesting. Because, in Nevada, that was the first time I've ever shot a machine gun.
Yep. Same.
Because it's a machine gun state.
Yep.
And at the time I was in radio, one of our clients was running for U.S. Senate. Yeah, he was a U.S. Senator. And a lot of his backers was a big gun store in Vegas. And he says, come out shooting with us this weekend. I'm like, all right, fine. I've never done this before. And a buddy of mine and I went out in the middle of the desert. And he had a 50 cal. He had a bunch of other guns. And what a day. He goes, you want to shoot the 50 cal? I said, sure. He says, just keep in mind, every time you pull that trigger, it's $5.
Right.
I go, I don't need to do this.
Right.
I'm not paying for it, but, whatever you want to do, man. I'm more than happy to load my own magazines and all that stuff.
Right.
Not a clip, but a magazine.
There you go.
And then just getting into what you're doing now with the health and fitness.
Yep.
Were you always into it?
No, I wasn't actually. I did CrossFit for a few years with my wife. And that ended with me getting my wisdom teeth out a couple years back, probably like 6 years back or something like that. And I was like, I'm going to take 2 weeks off and just never went back. Because I was like, I'm not getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning while my teeth are all hurting. And so I kind of got away from that. And so I'm pretty active somewhat, and they'll do a lot. It wasn't working out, wasn't doing all that. But I found myself, because I have 3 daughters. I have a 10-year-old. She'll be 10 actually this next week.
Nice.
And I have a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. John, who we talked about, coached. My middle daughter's a gymnastics competitive gymnast, and so John was one of her coaches for a while, and that's how we got to know each other. And I want to keep up with them, all of that kind of stuff. But this will get kind of serious for a second, but
sure.
Forewarning. But my dad died when he was 41 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so very unexpectedly. My parents were missionaries over in the Middle East, and he very unexpectedly died. And so then when I got to be 40 years old and then older than him, and I was like, maybe I should be paying a little more attention to my health. Like, I'm like realizing I'm older than my dad lived to be, and I wasn't taking my health seriously. And so actually a early mentor of mine, amazing leader I worked with when I was in my 20s, he posted something online about a story that my wife actually saw and was like, you should read Chris's story. And so I went and took a look at it, and he was talking about how he had just turned 50 and he's super active. He lives in Colorado, he's outdoors all the time, and was the most active he's ever been and the heaviest he's ever been, and couldn't figure it out. Tried all the different things, all the different things you could look up online and learn about, fad diets, all the things, nothing
body
worked.
Type and
whatever. He said
endomorph.
I tried everything and nothing worked. Right. And then he found a coach, and this coach, he did a coaching program with him and lost, I want to say 40-ish pounds, and kept it off for a year before he made this post. And that's what got my attention, because I think we've all seen people who have lost weight and gained it back, and up and down diet process. Yeah. But he lost it and kept it off for over a year, and then talked about it. And I was like, okay, I want to hear what you have to say. And I already had a massive amount of respect for him. And so he introduced me to this coach. And I found out very quickly talking to this coach, it's like, I didn't even know the right questions to ask. Cause I'm like, I need to do something. What do I need to do? And he's kind of steered me through some thought processes of things that got me realizing I just don't know what I don't know. And, so I wanted some help. So I hired him as a coach, and I lost 35 pounds in 3.5 months.
And you were just basically against that wall. You just couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, it's like I didn't have a plan.
Nothing that you did was making a difference.
Well, I wasn't really even trying. That was the thing. To me, it was just kind of coasting through and gaining a little bit of weight and a little bit of weight and a little bit of weight. And then it was like, I'm not active like I should be. And that's often hard for people to just overcome that inertia of like, I need to start something. Yeah. But when you don't have a plan and you don't have someone guiding you through that, and you're just... There's so much, I like to tell people, there's so much noise in the nutrition space, in the fitness space. It's like, do this, don't do that. This always works. This doesn't work. This, you have to do it this way, and like this. And
keto works. No, it doesn't. Yeah. Carbs work. No,
absolutely. They don't. Yeah. And so there's so much noise, and finding a coach for me helped silence that noise and just give me a plan. And once I had a plan, I like to tell people it was the easiest major change I've ever made in my life. So I told him, I was like, I don't want to rely on any products of any kind. I want to understand nutrition. And that's kind of what they came out with it. And I want to be able to, carry this on. And that was kind of their thing. So we want you to be able to do this for the rest of your life. If you learn this. And so I did. And like I said, 35 pounds in 3.5 months. The first 2 months, I ate ice cream every single day and lost 20 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, I love it.
But is that according to body type or anything like that? Or?
No, it all, like every single diet thing out there that you do, diet, nutrition plan, whatever you want to call it, works because of one thing. It puts you in what we call a caloric deficit. Mm-hmm. And you have to be in a caloric deficit to lose weight. If you aren't, you're not going to. And some ways are more extreme than others. You're going to take carnivore, for example, and cut out an entire macronutrient. You're not going to do any carbs at all. Right. Or you're going to do keto and cut out most of the carbs and all that. Or you got guys who are vegans. And when there's all different ways people get there. Yeah. But all of these different things work because you're in a caloric deficit. Now they work for a little while, and then your body adapts because your body's really smart. And so,
it goes into famine mode.
Well, it will shift. There's metabolic adaptations, right? Mm-hmm. And so, without going too crazy deep into all this stuff, right? But there's basically there's something called non-exercise activity, and so and there's your physical activity level. There's the thermic effect of food. There's all these things that come into play. There's your basal metabolic rate, your resting metabolism, right? And so all those 4 things, you can do math that actually tells you how many calories your body needs every day. And so if you were laying on this couch, not moving all day long, your body would require a certain amount of calories to exist, like for all the systems in your body to do what they need to do. That number isn't going to change. Like there's a required number of calories. If you're just laying here, that number is pretty constant, like what it is. And then you start adding in physical activity, all that stuff changes those levels of what you need. But there's actual math that I learned in my nutritional certification stuff. It's not that complicated, and you can know exactly what you need. And if you know the target, I'm going to throw out easy math numbers, right? If you need 2,000 calories a day and you eat 2,000 calories a day, I don't really care what those calories are made up of. If you want to maintain your consistent weight, that's what you need to do, is hit that target. And so you don't have to do keto. You don't have to do carnivore. You don't have to do low carb or vegan or whatever. If you can pay attention to your overall daily calories, you can manage how you want your weight to go. If you want to gain weight, you want to put on muscle, now you've got to eat in a surplus, and you've got to have enough protein for that. You actually need more protein while you're losing weight than you do when you're trying to put on muscle. And most people don't understand things like that.
Well, keto is kind of like the new version of Atkins. Right?
Yeah. I mean, again, I don't really care what people eat. And I tell my coaching clients this, I really don't, for them to lose the body fat they want to lose, I don't care what they eat. Now, there's a lot of nutritional reasons why you want to make better choices, right? Yeah. But the overall calorie target is kind of your big thing.
I did the Body for Life program back when I was 24, 25 years old. But I also remember like a switch going off in my mind that I was tired of being, having a beer belly. I wanted to see my abs for the first time. Right. And I had to drive. Yep. But man, it took up so much time. Not just the workouts, the meal prep.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because, it was 6 times a day eating, using the Myoplex product as supplements. And I would make salmon burgers. I would have the brown rice, a vegetable, breakfast would be some sort of a egg white, burrito or something like that. And it's, I don't ever want to even look at cottage cheese ever again. And it's been 20 some odd years since I've done it. Right. I still have an aversion to cottage. I've eaten so much cottage cheese during that time of my life. That's funny. And I don't even want to smell it. Right. But I mean, that's the kind of thing where I am now is I'm getting back into trying to get 2 or 3 days a week of getting weights over my head. I do push days, pull days. My leg days consist of me getting on the treadmill, cranking out 1.5 miles or maybe 2 miles at an incline. As the weather gets warmer, I want to get out. I want to do that in addition to, after work, I always like taking a walk around the neighborhood. Right. You get a couple of miles a day and walking. I figured that should be good, but it's always been, the challenge with me has always been getting the nutrition dialed in.
No, 100%, because most people have got it. They've been conditioned to believe that they have to be in the gym to lose weight. Right. And you don't. You need to get your intake under control. Yeah. There's something called your total daily energy expenditure, or TDEE. You can look it up, abbreviation of that. And you can find a TDEE calculator online. And that calculator you can put in, depending on what formula they're using, they're all kind of the same, but they'll need your height, your weight. If you know your percentage of body fat, you don't have to know that, and your activity level. And if you put that in there, it'll give you a target. And that target calorie number for your total daily energy expenditure, that's your balance point on, if we're talking about a deficit or a surplus, that's where it's balanced at. And so if that's 2,000 calories a day, then that's where you've got to be to stay there. Now, if you want to lose weight, you need to go into a deficit. So you're eating less calories than what your body needs. And body fat is just stored energy. And
I have a lot of stored energy.
Most people have more than they realize. When I went into my whole process, I thought, I could lose 15 pounds. I didn't realize I had 35 pounds to lose. But as I dropped that weight, all of my biomarkers and health-wise improved. I went from being on the verge of my doctor being very concerned about my cholesterol to all of a sudden they're like, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. My blood pressure, everything came down. Everything came down. There's a guy that I just wrapped up a coaching program with who lost 46 pounds in about 5 months. And I didn't explain this real clearly when we started, but he was on high blood pressure medication and struggling with sleep apnea. And first 10 pounds he lost, sleep apnea went away. And by the time he lost 30 pounds, his blood pressure was back to normal and his doctor was thrilled. And so just getting that excess body fat off of your body does a lot.
Yeah.
And that total daily energy expenditure number is kind of where any meaningful conversation about losing body fat and losing weight needs to start. Because if you don't understand that number, you're going to be chasing your tail. And people have all their different ways of doing stuff, right? Like I know a lot of people are like, I'm going to go and I'm going to earn this treat that I'm going to have. And
right.
so for example, like most people, every conversation I have about this, they overestimate the amount of calories that they're burning off, and they underestimate the amount of calories they're consuming.
Right.
So if I were to ask you, do you have any idea how many calories you burn running a 5K? Do you have any idea?
I mean, I know that, if I were to run it, I think I do. Whenever I do a mile and a half, I want to say I'm probably burning 300 or 400 calories. And that's walking.
Gotcha.
And I'm not going to run a 5K with the present condition I'm in.
Right.
But if I walked a 5K, 3.3 miles.
Yep.
Yeah. So you're looking at, that would take me about an hour. So I would imagine probably about 600-700 calories.
Okay. And Krispy Kreme donut, like chocolate glazed Krispy Kreme donut.
I'm not a donut guy. Thank God.
Well, so
ice cream for me.
So what would you guess? Chocolate glazed Krispy Kreme donut.
It's probably 900 calories.
Okay. So both of those, I didn't expect you to get right? But I'm just blindsiding you with information, right?
Right.
But if the average person runs a 5K, 300 calories.
Yeah.
You're going to burn 300 calories running a 5K.
Yeah.
And you're going to consume 450 calories eating that donut.
Yeah.
And so people are like, I'm going to run a 5K, so I'm going to eat this donut. I earned it. Well, actually, you're already in a surplus of calories.
You got to run a 10K to burn it off.
Yeah. And so if you're trying to earn your calories or burn your, I'm going to burn off what I eat, you're going to be chasing your tail the whole time, especially if you don't know what that total daily energy expenditure number, that calorie target is, right? And so I tell people, and the people that I coach, it's like, I don't need you to go to the gym to lose weight. I need you to do two things. I need you to hit a calorie target that we're going to put you in a deficit that makes sense for you and the amount of calories that we're trying to adjust and the amount of weight you want to lose in the time frame that we have. And we aim for 1 to 2 pounds a week. That's a really good, sustainable process of weight loss there. And I need them to walk because I talked about a couple things earlier really fast. I mentioned your basal metabolic rate, your resting metabolism, which is the calories your body just uses. Yeah. There is your non-exercise activity. It's actually called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It just has to do with how your body burns calories doing non-exercise, like you walking from here to your car or from the car into the grocery store, or you're not setting out to exercise, but you're just moving. You're walking around your house or your office.
Right.
Your body actually burns calories doing that. It requires calories to do that. Yeah. Then you've got your PAL, your physical activity level. That's like you're setting out to exercise and lift or whatever. Go out for I'm going to go do cardio. You're burning calories intentionally. And then you've got the thermic effect of food, which is how your body processes different macronutrients, like protein, for example. If you eat 100 calories of protein, your body is going to burn off 30% of those calories. So you're going to net 70 of them just in digesting that food.
Right.
It's different for carbs and it's different for fats. It goes down. It's maybe 15%. I'm giving you rough idea. It depends on what you're eating, but 15% of it gets consumed for carbs and 0 up to 10% on depending on the type of fat. And so when you understand that, then you realize that, hey, maybe prioritizing protein might make a lot of sense because I'm going to not end up with as many calories at the end of that as I would if I'm prioritizing something else. Now, carbs and fats and protein, none of them are bad. Right? There's no inherently bad type of macronutrient or food. It's just if you're trying to lose weight or you're trying to gain weight, if you have a goal and you want to get there, then you just need to know what you have to do to get to that goal. Does that make sense?
Oh, totally. Yeah. For me, I know generally what to do thanks to the Body for Life thing.
Right.
And my regimen is kind of like a truncated version of it. I know the exercises that I need to do. I have, a set of adjustable dumbbells, a bench that's probably way too high. So I've always been thinking about maybe selling it and getting more of a professional gym, commercial, incline bench. because it seems really, really high off the ground for some reason. It's not easy to get, take the 50 pounds in each hand and then lay back and then push it over your head. It's just something weird about it. Not as what I remember.
So with the body, like with your current process, like what are you trying to accomplish right now?
I got to drop 60, 70 pounds, man.
Gotcha.
I mean, I'm the heaviest I've ever been.
So I'd said this briefly in passing in the conversation, but like you don't actually need to do any of that working out to lose that weight.
But I've always heard that cardio is like having hourly wages, and building up your musculature and is like having passive income. It automatically burns. You have an internal combustion engine that's just burning calories because you get so much more muscle mass. Muscle mass weight, I don't mind.
Right.
It's the gut, know, and it's the face and all that stuff.
Now, I'm not saying people shouldn't go to the gym and shouldn't exercise, but I'm saying to get the process of I want to lose body fat, you need to do two things. You need to get into that caloric deficit, and then we need to increase your non-exercise activity. And we do that by measuring steps. Okay. If I got on an exercise bike and you got on an exercise bike and John got on an exercise and we all went for 5 minutes, we're going to burn different amounts of calories. And most of the time, people and even the devices people are wearing are overestimating the amount of calories they're burning. I got people who are like, I did a workout today, I burned 1,000 calories. I'm like, you did not burn 1,000 calories. There's probably mathematically impossible that you burned 1,000 calories, but they think they did. And when you look at the things I mentioned before that make up that the total daily energy expenditure, right? I mentioned them in a specific order. I mentioned your basal metabolic rate, your resting metabolism, then your non-exercise activity, then your physical activity, and then the thermic effect of food. I mentioned them in that order because your most amount of calories that you're going to burn off during the day are going to come from your resting metabolism. And then the next most are going to be from your non-exercise activity because you're doing it all day long. You're constantly moving.
Not even thinking about it.
Yeah. If you're a person who talks with their hands, that requires a certain amount of calories to move like that. Or you bounce, my wife's like, stop shaking the car with bouncing your leg,
And not going to use that as an excuse.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm exercising.
And then when you go and get into the actual physical activity level, your exercise, most people work out for half an hour to an hour. It's such a small, tiny portion of your day. So you're trying to use that to justify your calories. You're going to be chasing your tail. The best thing you can possibly do is adjust your intake to where it needs to be to get the results that you want.
Right.
And, then your body, we talked about earlier, your body's going to adapt. If your body's smart, it's like, okay, if body fat is just stored energy, like if you overconsume calories, your body has to do something with those calories. And your adipose tissue, your fat cells, like where your body stores fat, all that is an energy storage. So if it goes, you've got extra energy, I've got to put it someplace. Danny might be stuck on a desert island next week, so I need to conserve some energy here, and he might need that next week. And as you start to reduce the amount of calories you put in, your body gets used to that, and then your body will start to do metabolic adaptations and slow things down in the background that you don't even realize to kind of offset the shortage of calories it's seeing, and it'll start to slow down. And you have to intentionally offset that by doing low intensity non-exercise activity, and we just track steps. So like what I need people to do is be in a deficit, and we're going to slowly increase their steps over time and kind of offset that, like bring up the steps as their weight's coming down and they're in a deficit. If you do those two things, you're going to continue to lose weight.
It's funny that, we're just going to store it away as fat and stored energy and it's like, why was it set up that way? I'll have to ask, God that.
Right. Well, here's an interesting thing.
Why can't we just poop it out, for crying out loud? Right. If we don't need it, just get rid of it.
Here's an interesting thing. You are born with every fat cell you are ever going to have.
Right.
They just are either being utilized or they're collapsed.
Swollen or not.
Right. Basically, it's like, but that's kind of fascinating, right? It's like a little tiny chubby babies. You see them, you see a little liter babies, and it's like the body fat side of stuff. It's just a tool your body uses, right? But you start to run into the problems when you're storing excess body fat and like visceral fat versus subcutaneous fat, like visceral fats around your organs and that kind of stuff. And that's where a lot of really unhealthy stuff can start to happen to your organs there. That you don't see that on the surface as much, but like the kind of fat you can reach out and feel, that's your subcutaneous fat. It's on top of your muscles. And you typically lose a lot of times visceral fat. It's going to be different for everybody, but visceral fat tends to go first,
right,
and then your subcutaneous fat later. But the key to losing body fat is be in an energy deficit, like a calorie deficit, and then we've got to increase your activities. If you will just eat less and move more, you're gonna do it. And there's a difference between burning calories and burning body fat.
Right.
And you want to target body fat through lower intensity activity.
Right.
And so that's why I tell people, if I can get you to walk and I can get you to be in a calorie deficit, we can win.
So basically what you're saying is what I'm doing in my days that I lift weights. On my push days, I'll do chest, shoulders, and triceps. Pull days, I'll do, buys and back.
Right.
And back is interesting without a cable.
Right.
It's tough to do. It's tough to do lats without a cable machine or something like that. So you got to try and make do with the free weights and stuff
right.
like that. It's my least favorite body part to work. But if I had the right tools, it would actually be okay.
Right.
So you're saying that basically what I'm doing, keep on doing it, just increase my steps and watch my intake.
Go to the gym for the right reasons. But some people go to the gym to try and lose weight. You're not going to do it there.
Right.
Like there is part of it that contributes to that calorie deficit, right? But if you can kind of go, I'm going to make my adjustments in my intake and make my adjustments in my non-exercise activity, everything I do on top of that is a bonus.
Right.
And on top of that, it's going to help your metabolism. It's going to help, like you talked about building muscle, but if you added a pound of muscle, it's going to gain you 6 calories in your resting metabolism per day. So you're not really gaining all that much, by adding a bunch of, like thinking you're going to add a bunch of calories by adding lean muscle. You still want to add lean muscle. You still want to, there's a lot, I'm not saying that stuff's not important.
I don't mind doing the weights. Right. I like it.
Do it. And people need to find things they enjoy and do it. The other thing that most people miss out on in this whole conversation is I could come up with the absolute perfect nutrition plan for you and hand you a meal plan that says eat exactly this stuff and do exactly this activity, whatever the workout is. And if you don't enjoy it, you're not going to do it.
And that's the thing is, I was going to cut to your point. One of the things that I wanted to start getting into at some point, and budgetarily and time has never really been good factors in my life. I've always enjoyed, I've done a few demo sessions of Krav Maga.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Great.
And I always enjoyed it. I always thought it was fun. It's a good practical way to learn self-defense maneuvers and stuff like that. It's like, I got to get around to just making time for that. And a lot of the gurus and social media influencers, thought leaders, one of them made a really good point that you've got 24 hours in the day. If you can't take 1 hour for yourself, then what are you doing?
Yep.
But I mean, I do that in the morning. I tend to get up when my body says it's time, which is usually around 6:15, 6:30. I, do my routine and then eventually begrudgingly make it down to my front room in my house and either hop on the treadmill or start putting weights over my head. But it's getting past the first 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes.
Yep.
And then you're into it. You know?
And it's just, you make time for what you value.
Right.
And most people, I did this for years. It was like, I'm in my 30s going, I need to take my health seriously. And then I get to be in my 40s and go, what happened to the last 10 years?
But here's the thing that my father, similar to you, my father died your father died much younger than mine did. He was 64, but it was multiple myeloma that eventually got him. He never really took his health seriously. Typically ate what he wanted. I also think that the standard American diet was a much different thing back then than it is now. We're fighting that aspect of it. I know that in other countries, the food tastes vastly different, tastes more whole. People in Italy and the European countries can eat whatever the heck they want, and they're still looking great, because the food's different. It's the quality of food. It's their activity every day. They're doing a lot more walking. We're a very sedentary society these days.
Well, on top of that, again, you can look at all the stuff, but I have friends who've moved here from Europe and from New Zealand and all that. And the first thing that got like they were like, whoa, culture shock was portion sizes here.
Wow.
It's like massive size. They first got here and we're like, there's no way I could ever eat that. And then 4 years later, they're like, that's normal to eat.
Yeah.
Like, and they gained a bunch of weight in the process. So we've had a bunch of conversations about that. But it's all of it like demystifying the whole, how do you lose weight? You have to eat less. And you have to move more, and it doesn't have to be hard. It really is
that simple.
It does. When I
is that your coaching program? Look, just eat less and do more. Did you do more today?
Well, basically,
do it tomorrow.
It's not that hard. Yeah. Most people need some accountability. Like most people need a plan, and they need someone to be, hey, I'm going to have to talk to you, and like, am I going to want to tell Danny that I chose to not do the things I need to do to get to the goals I said I had? Like if I want to lose 10 pounds or 20 pounds, and this is how I have to do it, but I'm choosing not to do that. When you have someone on the journey with you, I don't care if it's a coach or a friend or whatever, that accountability and that someone on the journey with you makes a huge difference.
I bet. And that's something we may have to talk about offline.
Right.
But for me, it's like a lot of the, what worked for me, of course, was being in my 20s. And I dropped 60 pounds on that program. I looked fantastic. But we moved to Vegas. Life changes at that time. You know, of course, a lot of people would say, you're making excuses. Yeah, I am. But that's what happened. And I burned out from it. You know, even today, there's an element of like, oh, no, I have to do this again. You know, but I force myself to do it because I know it's good for me.
Is it working for you though?
I don't know. I mean, because it's inconsistent. Last week we were in New York.
Consistency is huge.
Right. You know, next week I'm going to be in South Florida. I got to, try and make time to wake up in the morning or when I get back to the hotel at night to go down and just get on a treadmill or, do the weights or something like that. I didn't do that in New York. But on the flip side, Thursday we walked through Central Park. We'd probably walked 7-8 miles that day. That was a good cardiovascular day. You know, it was funny because my wife and I were walking through Central Park. It was a beautiful day. We were heading to a museum up on the upper eastern side of Central Park. And, as we calculated it as about 3.5 mile walk from where we were, but with all the turns and, hey, let's go check this out. And by the time it was all said and done, it was 4.5 miles.
Right.
And she goes, you do realize that once we get to the museum, we have to now walk through the museum.
Right.
And I go, yeah, I've been thinking about that too. She's like, how much of this do you really want to see? I'm like, we'll play it by ear when we get there. And turned out that we had a great time. Right. We felt fine. Here's the thing I was going to make before about my dad. He didn't, from what I could see, take his health very seriously. I've been doing a lot of things that he would never do. He had sleep apnea. He had snoring issues. I got onto a CPAP years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. And that's what really was the game changer. Once you get on CPAP, you actually lose weight. No, not in my condition, not my case. I gained probably 15 pounds. And I had a sleep doctor, a good friend of mine. His name is Dr. Bajoy John. He goes, yeah, that makes sense. I said, well, how everybody was telling me that I would lose weight. He says, well, think about it. Your body was fighting to survive at night because of lack of oxygen. Your heart rate was pumping faster. You're burning more calories because the body's in survival mode. It's trying to fight to stay alive. Now it doesn't have to. You're getting the flow of air that needs to, you're not snoring anymore. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense, of course, with me, so now I got to counter that, which is fine. Something my father never did, which may have actually caused the early death, right? The other thing that I added into my sleep regimen was a grounding blanket.
I've heard a lot of people talking about that lately.
Oh my gosh. I slept with it. I was like, well, maybe it's a placebo kind of a thing, but I feel this feels right. It occurred to me I've been sleeping with it probably for about 2 months now. And about a month ago, I was going up and down the stairs. And I'm going, wow, nothing hurts. Like all the inflammation wasn't there.
Right.
And that inflammation is the biggest cause of all the death. Right. So I'm like, well, hey, between the CPAP and the grounding blanket, I got a fighting chance to make it to my 80s, because my father died I think his father died around the same age. My father's brother died at 69 or 68, I want to say. So my brother and I are like, hey, we're probably good into our 70s. based on our father's
That's funny.
history, you know?
Yeah.
My mother's 82. You know, she smoked. Gosh, she was 14 years old when she started, and she quit about 7 years ago.
Wow. It's amazing sometimes when you see the things that everyone's like, you can't do this, it's unhealthy, and people have done it for
You're
50 years. Yeah.
So we had an Ancestry.com thing done recently, and come to find out, out of left field, I'm 41% Jewish.
Huh.
So I'm going, well, maybe that's got something to do with it, because my mom, it comes from my mom's side. She's still, I was like, well, I attribute maybe her survival to bitterness and anger, I think, probably. And maybe the smoking. I don't know, you know.
That's funny.
Yeah. But I want longevity. You want quality of life too.
Oh, absolutely.
You know?
And like practically speaking, right?
Yeah.
Can I tell you a story?
Go ahead.
So, I'll go back. I'll circle back to my story. So I lost that 35 pounds, right? And then I had this opportunity to be on this television show that the firearms school I trained at in Nevada. It's a TV show. It shot the first season of its show there, and they were trying to connect me to the show. And I think they tried to connect everyone who did their advanced classes. They had a lot of members there. And they're like, if you're interested, the show is shooting here, you should talk to them. I tried to talk to them, and they never even responded back to me. I was like, okay, whatever, lost interest. They did their first season of the show. And then I lost all this. I had like 30 pounds into my weight loss journey, and I get an email, and they're like, hey, we're looking for competitors, like one more male, one more female competitor for season 2 of this show. If you're interested, apply here. And I was like, I mean, it's stuff I enjoy. Like the TV show was focused on a lot of firearms competition side of things, but then this a lot of military PT survival training stuff and like escape and evasion stuff. And I do that stuff for fun. Like I went and did a urban escape and evasion course with people that train just the military and how to do urban escape and evasion. And so I like went to Los Angeles for 3 days with these guys, and part of it, like they're teaching you how to get out of situations and get out of restraints and get out, like pick locks, do all this stuff. And then I'm being chased by bounty hunters. Like I get kidnapped and abducted and like pillowcases over my head, get duct tape around my neck, like, and handcuffed behind my back, and I have to escape from that. And they just taught you how to do that. And I did 16 miles on foot that day, getting away from these like legitimate bounty hunters tracking us down.
What a great workout
it was
regimen.
So fun. But like, and I was not in the shape to do that. I could barely walk like afterward. It was like rough. And I took public transportation that day, and I still did 16 miles on feet. Like,
wow.
And so we had to go pick these locks and bring them with us and make improvised weapons and do all this stuff, all the stuff they taught us how to do. And anyway, it was fun. I think that stuff is fun. And this TV show tied all these things together. So I was like, why not? Like, I'll apply. Yeah. And so I fill out the application, send the stuff, and they're like, great, send us a video. And I'm like, what am I supposed to say? They don't tell you. So I'm like, okay, I'll send you a video. They're like, when are you going to send it? I was like, tonight, because if I don't, I'm going to talk myself out of this, right? So I stayed up late. My wife was super annoyed with me, and sending this stuff. And anyway, I get accepted to this television. They're like, we want you on this show, and I'm like, okay. And I just said yes because I like new challenges. I like new things, and I thought, I've never done this before. Let's try it. And anyway, I had like a month or so to get like about 40-ish days to get in really good shape. Keep in mind, I haven't been working out. All I've been doing is walking, getting this 30 pounds off of me. And so I got down my last 5 pounds off there. That I had a goal weight, but I went from 183 down to 148.
Oh my God.
I was aiming for 150.
Must have been like a pencil.
Everyone's like, you've lost a lot of weight.
They're like, sick?
They're like, the first 15 pounds, you're like, okay, Daddy's lost weight. They're like, the next 15 pounds, it was like, that's a different person.
Yeah,
like,
dude, you're a little extreme at this point.
Yeah, and so I got all the way down there.
Because you should be like 185 pounds with your height and everything. You know, if I get down to 190, I am golden. I am like, that's beautiful for me.
Right now, I hover between like 160, 165 is like where I like to be at.
Right,
and if I get above 165, I just feel like, unless I know it's muscle, and you can measure all that and whatever. But so anyway, I was like, okay, I'm going to do this show. And on this show, I had a month to get ready. So my coach was like, I'll help you do everything I can. And I worked out for a couple hours a day, just getting in the best shape of my life, which I was not required to lose weight. Because I wanted a six-pack and I wanted to be able to compete on this show, I put in the hours and the time and all this stuff. And mainly just to get, I was like, I know there's Navy SEALs on here. There's like military folks I'm going to have to compete. And I've never done any endurance training ever. And so did that. did the show. Amazing experience. It just finished airing on cable and satellite. It's called Surviving Man, MANN, because the SEAL Team 6 veteran who hosted is a guy named Don Mann. Mm-hmm. Great experience. I made some really great friends and did some really hard things and had a lot of fun. And super hard, super fun. But I got home from that, and it's like it shifted my mentality, because one of Don's lessons he wanted us to learn there is that you're capable of doing 100 times more than you physically think you can. It's like the military might tell you 3 times or 5 times, maybe 10 times, depending on who you're talking to. He's like, I'm telling you, you can do 100 times more than you think you can do. And he's a guy who has not only served in SEAL Team 6 doing some unbelievable things around the world and for our country, but he climbed Mount Everest to the point of blacking out. Like, he lost his color vision, blacked out. They, like, Sherpa caught him and carried him down off the mountain, or he would have died. Like, but he's like, that's all I want is you guys just to go as hard as you can. It's like, the guy's a next level guy. Anyway, I did the show, got home from the show, and I maintained all that level of fitness. And I kept adding muscle, and I probably added 8 pounds of muscle over the next year or so. And anyway, I'm at the beach with my daughter. My wife and my kids, we're all down in Florida visiting family, and we go to the beach. And my middle daughter, the gymnast, like, she trains 16 hours a week. She's a machine. She's a state champion gymnast on 3 out of 4 events and all around. She's awesome. She's in the gym literally 16 hours a week, training with her team. And the two of us are out body surfing on a beach I grew up with down Florida there. Mm-hmm. And I did something I'd never do, but we aren't at the beach very often. I forgot. I didn't read the water conditions.
Right.
And there's some people in the water and all that. Anyway, long story short, we get sucked out in the riptide, the two of us. And thank God it was the two of us, because the most physically fit in our family. I mean, my wife followed my example and lost 30 pounds. And And I actually had 13 friends in total who all started working with my coach and all lost 20 to 30 pounds. And before I ever started coaching people, it's just because, and that's what I like to tell people. It's like, if you will make a decision to change part of your life, you have no idea the people that's going to impact around you. And
right.
Your kids, your spouse, your friends.
Especially if they see it working.
Yeah, exactly. And then see you keep it off and see a change consist. Like, that's the people to this day, people are like, it's been 2 years. You've really kept that off. And it's like, it's really not hard once you learn how to do it.
But there has to be, a definite purpose, like a switch in your head that goes off.
You have to decide.
Yeah.
You have to know why you want it. So anyway, one of the things that keeps me motivated now is this experience in this riptide, because we were sucked out in this riptide. And I came out of nowhere. We were fine. And all of a sudden my daughter's like, I can't touch. I'm like, well, swim closer to me. And she's like, I can't. And so then I'm like, I swam closer to her. And now my feet are off the ground and we are sucked out. And I grew up in the ocean. I know how you get out of a riptide. You're supposed to swim parallel. We could not get out of the riptide.
Wow.
And got sucked out. And we probably fought it a little too long before we realized, okay, we're not going to do it. And where I started getting nervous was when we couldn't get out of it. And then she's like, I'm getting tired. And she's a machine, and I'm getting tired. And I'm like, all we can do at this point is we're praying. There's no lifeguards at this beach. And we're tried yelling. No one can hear us. We're sucked out pretty far. And I'm like, Jesus, help us. We need help. And so I look around and I see this guy with a surfboard. I mean, way up there on the beach. And he's walking on the beach. And he looks at me. And I wave at him. And he waves back. And I waved him towards me. And he got the message and swam out. And it took him probably 5 minutes to get to us. I mean, it was a long way out there.
You're treading water.
We're treading water, swimming, and still kind of being pulled. It was the worst riptide I've ever been in. And by the time he got to us, he just gave us the board, and we just he was actually an off-duty firefighter, and was he's like, normally I get paid to come rescue people. He was just cracking jokes, but he just let us rest for a while, and then we ended up getting out of that and swimming in. But I've never been more thankful in my life that I took 3 months to drop 30 pounds, and then spent some time getting in shape, and then just maintained that. And I've never been more happy and thankful that I was with a daughter, my most active daughter, because who knows, this could have ended very, very differently, right? Yeah. And anyway, so one of my goals now is to help people just live fit and prepared lives. And so that's how I kind of tie in the firearms thing and all of the survival training stuff that I've done and all that. Is I want people to not just lose some weight, but it's okay, lose some weight and learn how to take care of your family, learn how to defend yourself if you need to, whatever that looks like. Some people are very, very much in the firearms. Some people are very much not in the firearms, and having options is super helpful. But I have friends who are like, what should I invest in? Like, what should I spend my money on with guns? And I'm like, training. Go get trained. Learn how to actually use that. Maybe get some medical training and learn how to stop bleeding.
Control,
bleeding control is amazing. I actually
learn how to use a tourniquet.
Yep, I went and did tactical combat casualty care training. Got certified with a combat lifesaver side of that with some friends who had brought in some SWAT trainers to teach us how to do all that, and guys who do that overseas. And because I'm like, I have a first aid kit in my car. I've had it for years. There's a huge difference between having a first aid kit and knowing what to do with it, how to actually stop bleeding, how to actually keep people alive. And people are like, well, I want you to teach me how to shoot. I'm like, how about you learn to like get physically able to pick your spouse up and carry him 100 yards? Like, what if the building catches on fire and your spouse is unconscious or your kid's unconscious? Can you pick them up and get them outside the door? Or if there's an emergency of some kind, you've got to pick somebody up and move them. You're way more likely to have to do that than you are to have to pull out a firearm and use it to defend yourself.
It's amazing what you're going to be able to do in those scenarios. It's like, God steps in and really does help you out.
I think there's some of that. Some of it's adrenaline, but everyone thinks they're going to.
That's what I mean.
People think they're going to rise to the occasion, but the reality is you're going to sink to the highest level of training that you can actually consistently do. Right. And so, whatever we teach this in firearms training and stuff too, but it's like if you can perform under no stress really well, you're going to perform 50% of that under stress or less. Right. And so you're not just going to rise to the occasion miraculously. Like there is some degree of that, like you shared, but it's your physical capability and like your actual skills that you have are going to be the limiting factor. And you're not going to hit necessarily, unless you're training consistently all the time, you're not going to hit that to the same level you would without stress. And
a buddy of mine who was in the Marines and was actually in firefights, he goes, what a lot of people don't anticipate that have never been in a firefight, the first thing to go is your hearing. Yeah. And it totally affects everything. Yeah. Because you're just surrounded by loud noise. Yep. And your ears weren't prepared for it. And then, you weren't mentally prepared for it. Right. And I'm like, wow, I never thought. He's like, yeah, a lot of people never do. They never think of that happening. I never thought of that happening. You don't think of those. Yep. And then you've got to make decisions under all that extra stress. Right. And that's where training of any kind comes in. It's like when you have skills and you've practiced this and you've rehearsed this, and not only just in a training situation, but put yourself in an actual scenario where there's high stress and you have to make decisions and your family's involved and all of that. That changes the whole dynamic for you. And the more you do that, you learn to make decisions quicker under stress, and it becomes a different thing. Maybe that's the fitness regimen, doing what you did in LA. Yeah, that was the thing. Maybe that's a business idea where it's just every workout regimen is you're being chased, right? And you're in fear for your life. Absolutely. That's and you gotta get upstairs. You gotta pull yourself over walls, things of that nature. That's not a bad business idea. I'm not sure how the insurance liability would work out, but it'd be fun. You sign a waiver. There's always ways to get around it legally, and you know what you're in for. You could get hurt. I mean, it's no different than signing a kid up to play football, right? Learning how to. Part of the training is learning how to take a fall, right? Learning how to climb a wall. Here's how you take a bullet. No, I'm just kidding. Right. I mean, but even if you're using paint guns or paintball guns or something like that, or what do they call that? Airsoft ammunition and all that. Yep. And it's not lethal, but you feel the sting. Right. Oof. Yeah. No, all that. I love all of the firearm side of stuff. I'm really good at it. And I got to go compete at a national championship I qualified for 2 years ago. And I'm really good. I love all that. But when people are like, where should I start? I'm like, just get more physically capable. If you think you're one of these guys who's prepared for whatever because you have a gun on you, but you're 30 pounds overweight, I got news for you. You're not as prepared as you think you are. Right. And if you can improve one area of your life, pick one area that's going to affect every other area of your life, what's it going to be? Oh, so I got so many areas, I just can't pick one.
Well, health. If you can get your health optimized, if you can do that, it's going to affect everything else. You're going to sleep better. You're going to have more energy. If you're a business owner and you can lose that extra weight and be able to like have energy throughout the whole day and be more mentally clear. I have clients who've come to me just for that.
Yeah.
And a guy named Jeremy that I know who came to me, lost 30 pounds in about 4 months. And his whole purpose for it was my business is growing more than it ever has. And I need to be at my top capability. And so he lost weight, got energy, kept it off, and he's about to come back to add some muscle and all that kind of stuff. And so
I'm grateful for the fact that I've never had problems sleeping.
Yep.
I've never had problem getting my 7 to 8 hours. The sleep doctor that I had on, once that podcast episode comes out, I'll send it to you. He's got such an amazing viewpoint for what he does, because you would think it's a very mundane topic to talk about, but it is utterly fascinating. There's a whole concept called sleep debt that I wasn't aware of. Yeah.
I've heard that term, but
it's like, racking up a credit card bill. You have to pay it back, and I tell my kids this, I'm planning, I said, look, when you guys are up at night, you're not supposed to be on your electronics or whatever, or you're not going to sleep, or you're watching this or reading that. You're putting your body into a debt state. All right. And all the gurus out there, well, just wake up an hour early and you can get so much more done. 4 o'clock. And he goes, no, 10 to 6. That's the sleep hours you should be adhering to for most people. Now, he says there are exceptions to the rule. There are people that can wake up earlier, but they typically have to go to bed earlier.
Right.
It just depends on their sleep horizon, I think is what he called it.
And recovery is king, even when working out. Like you can push and push and push and push, but if you never allow yourself to recover.
He has a whole theory as to why the Titans didn't perform well. He says because a lot of the teams that are not the high performers typically play during the day, and there is a third quarter slump, because at third quarter, that's when the body, a lot of people take naps.
Right.
And I said, do you think they're actually taking that into consideration when they got to go play in California or on the East Coast, and they've got time zone differences and things of that nature? He goes, I don't think they are. He says, I said, dude, you got to do a video on that and see if you can get into that organization and help them out. You could probably really make a difference and show them how they can get around it and what they need to do to overcome, the second half slump. He says he's done studies going back several years. He says they do well in the first and second quarter, third quarter, it slumps. Every single time. Every single time. And if it's this kind of a game at this time zone, this is what he broke it all down to a science. I said, did you show this to anybody? No. Dude, you need to get on somebody's radar to show it to them.
That's cool.
It's fascinating, buddy.
Yeah, no,
I'm completely, butchering it by explaining it. But how do people find and follow you, man?
Instagram is the best place, and it's Danny Zacharias. That's one long word. Danny Zacharias.
Did I follow you? I think I did. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't. I'll have to do that. We'll do that after this. And that's pretty much it, how they can reach out to you?
That's the best place. It's the place I communicate the most.
Okay. So. People that reach out to you. And what are you looking for? More clientele doing this kind of thing?
I'm always wanting to help people, right? Like I don't chase people down and that kind of stuff. It's more like I want people to know it's possible for them. Like I've got people that just started with me a month ago. Like Martha is one of them, a client of mine who is down like 13 pounds in 5 weeks.
Nice.
And all she's done is pay attention to her nutrition, like we talked about. She has full reign to choose what she wants to eat. Like I've gone in depth on why that stuff matters.
Instead of having 3 scoops of ice cream, have 1.
Well, and it's like literally, here's a calorie target, here's a step target. She's super consistent, and she's down 13 pounds in 5 weeks. I got another guy named Jeremy who is down. He's probably down 10 pounds. I haven't actually looked at the app today because I was flying to see how he's doing. Same thing. He's about 3.5 weeks in, and he's just very consistent. And so if people are like, here, I want to make a change, I want some help and some guidance doing it, that's the people I can help.
Especially people who are in their 40s, 50s, 60s.
Yeah, no, I don't usually work with people under like 35. Right. It's like in the
fat guys like me.
I wouldn't say that, but
it's what you're thinking. It's fine. I'm totally transparent.
I've been there though, know. So, but I wouldn't think that's not what I'm thinking. I'm not judging people like that. I mean, come on. John
will. He'll tell me to my face.
John's hilarious.
I look old and ugly, so. which is whatever.
That's funny. But yeah, no, like, and yeah, if people want help, I'm happy to help them. I'm going to start offering some firearms training and that kind of stuff later this year. I don't want to be your typical, hey, just come learn to shoot a gun. I have more in mind with that. So I haven't actually rolled that out yet. And a lot of family preparation stuff, that's the stuff I'm interested in, is helping people be able to defend their families and take care of them and stop bleeding, how to keep my kids alive, like how to get my kids healthy and moving, right? Like if mom and dad can make a change and inspire your kids. I mean, that was not ever a priority of my parents growing up. Like fitness wasn't. And so I've had to learn that.
Yeah. Well, there you go. We'll have all the details in the description. Of course, the link to the Instagram page. Is there a website or anything too?
Fitandprepared.com is the website.
Okay.
But I don't really, again, most of my communication is on Instagram. But now you've forced me to.
You got the Fit and Prepared. At least people could find your socials there.
Yeah. I am not actually using that. Just Danny Zacharias is the best way to.
You should get DannyZacharias.com.
Yeah, I do actually. So.
There you go. Well, there you go. All the details will be in the description. Please follow, rate, subscribe, share, review, all that fun stuff. If you got some value out of this podcast, out of this episode, tell your friends, tell your family, share it on social media. If you like what we're doing, let us know. Leave us a review on on your preferred social media platform or podcast audio host platform. You can rate us 1 to 5 stars, 5 preferably. Even if you mention us and write a little blurb, that would be wonderful. Again, we're on par to try and get up to 10,000 average downloads on an annualized basis per episode. And the only way to do that is to make the world more aware of the incredible community we have here of Middle Tennessee business owners, professionals, and entrepreneurs, because it is really a rich community. And share it out. That would be wonderful. MMTBP.com. Danny, thanks for coming out, pal.
Thanks for having me.